Tammy, would you please begin the recording? Looks like we're both on the same page. So welcome. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Again, please remember to mute your audio and video and include in the chat where you are from. We would like to know where everyone is at. And we want to let you know that we are thinking about everyone that is struggling to stay safe and dry and warm right now with these storms going on. You are in our thoughts. Whoops, why? There we go. My name is Mandy Seeteller. I am the statewide CPS coordinator for the Alaska Highway Safety Office here in Alaska, and I work at the Center for Safe Alaskans, and I'm also the vice chair of the National CPS Board. So on behalf of all of us and all of our board members joining us today, we are glad that you are here. This is our CPS Coordinators Forum for the month of February. And we have a full agenda today. Our first speaker, Robert Duckworth, is going to share information with us about how Indiana is using the National Digital Check Form data to benefit their state CPS program. Our second presentation will focus on statewide use of the National Digital Check Form in Rhode Island from speakers Kelsey, Lynch, and Andrea, Cheli. Then at the end, we would also like to quickly show you some new features available in the National Digital Check Form, including a table tool that will allow users to filter their own data. And that will be presented by Adele Polson from the National Digital Check Form program team. And she's going to walk us through that. We want to thank all of our speakers for their willingness to present information that can help benefit other CPS programs throughout the US. We would like to welcome Robert Duckworth. Mr. Robert Duckworth of the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute is currently serving as the director of the Indiana State Highway Traffic Safety Office after his appointment by the governor's office in 2018. Prior, he served as the impaired driving training coordinator for the state of Indiana, coordinating both statewide training programs of the Standardized Field Sobriety Testing, SFST, and the Drug Evaluation Classification, DRE programs. Traffic safety instilled its place in his career early when in 2005, he was certified as a drug recognition expert, DRE, and as an instructor in 2006. Mr. Duckworth has provided instruction in the drug evaluation and classification program area for the states of Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, and Louisiana, and as a guest presenter for NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Diversifying traffic safety with occupant protection, Mr. Duckworth has also served as a child passenger safety technician instructor for 14 years and is currently certified as a child passenger safety technician. With the combined experience of 18 years of sworn law enforcement and 20 years as a certified paramedic, his diverse background aids to instruction on a variety of law enforcement, public safety, leadership, emergency management, and medical related topics. He is a graduate of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department's Leadership Academy, and upon his appointment as the Traffic Safety Director in 2018, he retired at the rank of captain from Uniform Law Enforcement Service. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Robert Duckworth.
Thank you, Mandy. Good morning to everyone. We're going to hope and intend and plan that everything we tested works wonderful as we get started here. But as the introduction says, my name is Rob Duckworth. I'm the director of our traffic safety office here in Indiana, and currently also the acting CPS coordinator, as I have a vacancy for that position here in our office that we're currently working on filling. So my role with you here today is to do a couple of different things. One, we're going to talk about the National Car Seat Check Form, but also a little bit of a sneak peek or a look inside what maybe you don't know for the State Highway Safety Office. So having been an instructor for multiple years and still as a technician, I see a little bit of both sides with where we're at. But before we jump into those pieces, one of the things that I think is important to discuss with everybody when you're getting ready to present is what is your why? And for me, not only having been a technician earlier in my career, but this was really my what is your why moment. And this was a crash that occurred in Decatur County, which was the county in which I was a merit deputy for 18 years. And it was on July 22nd, 2016. And you can see the snapshot headline here, 2 dead, including a 5-year-old in Decatur County that called for 3 medical helicopters to the scene. So it was a pretty big significant crash. And the Jeep that you see pictured there on the left had 5 occupants in it, a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 14-year-old. Unfortunately, we found that no one was wearing any seatbelts at the time of this crash, and there was no child restraints in use during this crash. It was the summertime. They were going for a quick ride to town on a main country roadway, and then they came in contact with the vehicle you see on the right-hand side that was pulling a trailer. So we had 1 deceased from the Jeep, who ended up being the 5-year-old who was found on the front floorboard underneath the 14-year-old and 8-year-old, who were also thrown to the front of the vehicle from the rear. And we ended up sending multiple of them out on helicopters. One of them did not survive. But at this point in time, 2016, I had already been a technician in our community for 10 years. So if you're ever answering your question of, have we done enough or is there more to do? We always seem to be regularly reminded that there is something more to do with where we're at. So we talked a little bit about data and state highway safety officers, and we're going to look at a little quiz information. So this is kind of a little bit of a teaser item, but these are our stats here in Indiana. One of the performance metric targets that's tracked every year by NHTSA is children age 15 and under killed in traffic collisions. In Indiana, we have established a second performance target to that, so a sub-performance target, where we also look at children age 7 and under. So when we say 7 and under, that means that they should be in a child restraint. So we're looking at just those specific 2 categories, because children age 15 and under doesn't really tell us the full picture with where we're at. So this being the teaser, we're going to have a little quiz as we go into, and we're hoping that our audio comes through with everyone. But this is going to be our version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, looking at child passenger safety crash facts for Indiana. So our first question: which age group represents the highest number of children injured in motor vehicle crashes in Indiana annually? Not necessarily fatalities, which is the item that we looked at, but which age group represents the highest numbers to be injured? Now, unlike the game show, there is no phone a friend. We won't take away 2 of the wrong answers, but being CPS related individuals, what is your thoughts? So we have A, birth to 1, B, 1 to 3, C, 4 to 7, or D, 8 to 12. So D, 8 to 12, is the highest number of children injured in motor vehicle crashes in Indiana annually. And this is one of those things that really led us to start tracking our data separately, of not just 15 and under killed, but to separate that into that subcategory with 7. So one other question here for an opportunity for redemption, if you'll be willing to play with this again. So which age group represents the lowest restraint use of children injured in motor vehicle crashes in Indiana annually? So lowest restraint use injured in motor vehicle crashes in Indiana annually. And again, our main performance tracker that we look at is 15 and under. So where does this fall out within each one of those items? This answer is D, 13 to 14. So it's really kind of interesting when we start looking at children age 7 and under and killed in motor vehicle traffic collisions. So on the chart on the right, we have children 8 and under on the trend mapping, like we saw earlier for the full 15 age. And we realized that in 2020, it was about half of our numbers. Our number was 35, but that's not always been the case. And then we look and break down that broad spectrum of children killed in motor vehicle crashes. which ones of those were actually killed in motor vehicle crashes where CPS, child passenger safety, use of a child restraint, would have been a factor involved in this. And we all know that some of these crashes we have, and unfortunately Indiana in the last 2 years has had a couple that would be termed non-survivable crashes. And we look at that because of the vehicle being engulfed in flames, restrained or unrestrained. We weren't going to be able to provide any life-saving measures that were going to be effective. But when we had 17 in 2020, of those 17, we had those numbers in-car restrained. We have a small number of unknown category where we don't know where that was at, but then we have in-car restrained. So we're looking at not a total big picture number. It's only even half when we look into that 15 and under age group. So Indiana's journey on the to where we're at today with the digital car seat check form started early on. We've had a strong program in Indiana for many years through the sponsorship of the automotive safety program. So our office, the State Highway Safety Office, funds that program every year. And it started at the beginnings of what we would look at with 405 funding. For those of you that are NHTSA oriented, one of the things you had to do to earn your ability to see and receive those funds were certain things. We're going to talk about a few of those, because again, part of this perspective is to give you a look. But from 24 to 2018, we were using a 4-page form that was basically 11 by 17, folded in half. It was fill in the blank, fill in the boxes, a lot of manual entry for these items that come in. And for those of you that are grant recipients for different dollars, one of the biggest challenges you have with getting those dollars is the administrative burdens for tracking and reporting that keep you from doing what it is we're actually trying to do, which is the greatest good for the greatest number of people out there. So we had a drop back to this in 2018 when we went down to a 2-version form. And Indiana at one point was exploring or looking at developing their own application. We had a vendor who was providing some other data collection on tablet items for our seatbelt inspections. So we looked at using that item. And then lo and behold, finally after that, we see the arrival of the National Digital Check Form, which really was very timely for Indiana. So kind of looking at our history of those items that I was explaining, previously we had a cumbersome form. If you are familiar with it, it's easy. If you're a brand new technician, it's a whole lot more than what the 2-page Safe Kids form was, and could somewhat appear daunting if we didn't have a good number of power users or people in place to help explain or work through that issue. And that becomes important later when we look at where we're at with the car seat form now. So 2017 to 2018, we attempted to do our own state application. That was our first round of distribution for iPads. At the time, I was functioning as the state coordinator for our impaired driving programs, and we were also deploying tablets for that program. So it became very easy to sponsor both programs from the director's role, of which I'm in now, because we were providing tablets for drug impaired driving. So we'll provide tablets for data collection. It's all about enhancing the data collection. How can we get better with that data collection piece? So we started the creation of a website. Connection between the iPad and the website was an issue. So this is pre-National Digital Check Form. This is our own version, even though we have seen some challenges with the National Digital Check Form, but we've overcome those challenges. That's when we were seeing where we were at. We're looking for a new check form, and then we arrived with the National Safety Council presented us the opportunity to be one of the early adopters pilots for the digital car seat check form. So I want to talk about some of our struggles, and I've titled this piece, Our Struggles, Your Rewards. If we were able to do some of the tough learning or school of hard knocks for some things, these are some of the best practice suggestions that we would put to you when you're trying to expand this opportunity. And then we're going to look at the data that we now are able to gather off of that, and then we'll take any questions that are there. But one of the biggest things that we would say is you have to have power users. You have to have people that are familiar, people that are comfortable with using the form, to be hands-on, physically able to show these people that are new to it, new technicians or old technicians that are using new technology, and say, this is how easy this is. Watch me do this. very similar to what we demonstrate when we're demonstrating best practices as in the CPS program during the course, and asking them to mirror those things. The best way for learning is let me show you first, then ask for you to do, versus just here's the video, here's a tablet, good luck, let us know if you have any trouble. Call us down in Indianapolis, we'll give you a call back and see if we can help you. So one of the ways that we worked to improve upon that from where our initial rollout was, is we created regional child passenger safety specialists. So our state is already divided into 6 traffic safety regions that we use for many other items. So we created 6 child passenger safety specialist positions. For those of you that are in highway safety office and have that question, they are contractors to us, and that's how we connect them to our office. But they are all instructors, so they have the ability to help facilitate those seat checks that are important. We know we have other options now in the COVID world, or the current COVID world, whichever one it is. But prior to that, the seat checks were a big challenge for some of those recertifications. So we trained them, and we made them have that onboard power user capability to be able to teach the other folks how to use this system with where it is. The other thing that we would suggest is the first step of kind of doing your homework is size matters. What do they want? Initially, we rolled out iPad minis because they were small, they were compact. We didn't provide cases for them right away. We were going to, or we had a plan to, then we were working on developing the form. So we had iPad minis in the field, and when we actually asked for feedback, they said, well, we'd really like to have a little bit bigger tablet to be able to see it on. Yes, they could do it on their phone, they could do it on that tablet, but to be able to see what they were doing, the feedback was they wanted to be able to have a bigger tablet. Another item that we would encourage you to look at to avoid some of our troubles or struggles is do a survey and determine what is being used by the CPSTs at the time. What are they using right now? What are they using for their personal device? I'm an Apple person. I've used Apple since the original Apple when I was transferring out of my beloved BlackBerry that I still wish I had today, because it was one of the easiest smartphones for business purposes. But I don't know Android. If you hand me an Android tablet and I'm trying to get into the settings for that device and set that up or work through changes, I have trouble. I'm going to struggle. I can work right through Apple with no trouble. So we would say there's many options out there, Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, different free online polling purposes, but ask them what type of tablet or phone are you using right now, and look to do the greatest good for the greatest number. And by Android or Apple, that helps you justify with data why you chose one version versus the other. If you're challenged with cost, with one being more than the other, is through the survey that you've done through the end users, you have a greater chance for adoption and use because you don't have that learning curve. And then the other item is put a case on it. Obviously, there's a cost involved with these. The picture that I have here on the screen, this is what we currently use. So we just went through a redistribution. So our original iPad minis were rolled out 2017, 2018. They are now no longer updatable to the current Apple iOS. So eventually we will run into programming errors for apps and functions with things. So we just did another round of brand new iPads. And this time we distributed the current full-size Apple because they said they wanted to have that bigger screen. We allow them the opportunity to retain their iPad mini as long as it's functioning for them. If that's what they're comfortable with and that's what works. And then when it's no longer functional, then we'll take that back for our inventory purposes. But this is an example of the case that we put on ours. And there's a couple reasons why we picked this case. And this was a lot of feedback from our DRE group, but also our CPS specialists. And one of them is the hand loop strap that's adjustable back here. So you're not trying to hold a tablet more as you are slide your hand in it. And now you have a backrest while you're trying to enter data onto that tablet. It has a kickstand that can also be kicked out if you're working on it on a tabletop. piece. It's ruggedized, so it's going to survive the stop. It includes a screen protector on the front of it, but also it includes a shoulder strap or a hand strap. So in this situation, you could sling it over your shoulder. You could carry it down by your side if you're in the middle of working with an inspection for different pieces with where they're at. It may seem on one case that, no pun intended, in one case, this case was made for them. But another reason why this case was picked is it's for damage control and damage protection for us in the Highway Safety Office. Because if it has a handy dandy strap on it that they can leave it over their shoulder or cross strapped to their body, I risk a whole lot less chance of it being set down or left in a car and driving away, setting on top of a car and becoming one of the different insurance companies. No advocacy, and I don't work for Farmers Insurance, but we've seen a thing or two in the law enforcement community. We're really good at breaking things. So some of our challenges there for that. So what this map shows, and this is kind of leading us into our discussion about 405B funds, is this is our injury rate per 100,000 persons in 2019. So we have some high index counties that are having injuries for children 15 and under, and our rate in Lake County 2.9, Porter County 3.4. This map over here represents our number of child passenger safety technicians within that county. So when we're looking at and assessing, do we have enough technicians? Are they in the right place? Are we supporting the right inspection stations? Do we have an adequate number of inspection stations? Building that problem ID, not just specifically on crash data, but on injury data, and how are we meeting that need? You can see in some places where we have a lot of technicians here, we have 16 in St. Joe County. We're doing a great job. Kosciuszko County here, we're in the red. We only have one technician available there. So these are our fitting station sites, to be absolutely correct. We have many more technicians in this, but these are fitting station sites. So we're looking at, when we're looking at expansion and support and giving guide to our CPS specialists of where do we want you to work at? Where do we need courses at? We're looking at some of these underserved areas. And then this poster is something that I threw in here for a program we did last year for Child Passenger Safety Week. Historically, because of where it falls in the NHTSA calendar, it's been very difficult for the Highway Safety Office to promote and provide support for Child Passenger Safety Week. We did a campaign last year where we sent posters and stand-up posters that had more information on this, as well as flyers, to daycare centers that had an average enrollment of 100 children or more per day. So we're looking at that higher end of enrollment, again, looking at the greatest good for the greatest number. They received a wall poster, a stand-up poster that had a car seat guide information on it. They could either go to the website or they could go to the QR code, which then let them take the car seat quiz of, am I doing the right thing? And then it linked them back to our information page with where they're at. So advantages from the National Digital Check Form. This map is an extract by zip code of where the inspections are being logged at. This is the map that we saw on the previous screen of where are our problem areas, and then where also are our current fitting stations. So what we're looking at is over here in example in Sullivan County, we see on the map where you don't have any inspections going on. We only have one fitting station. We're seeing a lot of injuries. Probably need to be working at doing some increase there. So these are our 6 child passenger safety regions. This is how we have the state divided up for support for the inspection stations, but also for the check form. And this is a small excerpt from 23 CFR Chapter 2, Part 1200. And this deals with your funding and your highway safety plan every year and what has to be in it of the many things. And I draw attention for this because if you're trying to work with your highway safety office and maybe you have a situation like we have where we have a very low number of fatalities, we have some of the injuries there, but that's not our highest area that's receiving the injury risks. These are the things that we're trying to document. And we have to be able to show types of populations, high risk populations that present specific safety or usage challenges to improve occupant protection. How do we identify those high-risk areas? The digital car seat check form helps us dramatically in filling that void because we have the injury data here. We know where we have stations at and where we don't, and we can see where the inspections are lacking at to be able to provide that education pre-injury or proper restraint pre-injury, and to be able to build our problem ID. So with our 405B funds, which are occupant protection funds, we have our child inspection stations. So we have to be able to document that the state has an active network of child inspection stations and or inspection events that are, where they're located at, and serve the majority of the state's population. The digital car seat check form does the work for us on showing where we're providing those services at. There's no data to be put together. It doesn't have to become scanned off forms. It's already there. Staffed with at least one current nationally certified CPS technician during the official posted hours where we have, and then we have to have a plan to recruit and retain those. So beginning in 2019 is when our inspection stations were required to use the National Digital Car Seat Form. So we had an earlier on process where we were trying to develop our own form. We were wonderfully blessed to be able to have the opportunity to join the National Safety Council with the rollout of their form. We were doing so for about a year. And I talked earlier about administrative challenges. We were processing grants for folks to purchase and distribute child restraints. Some of those grants, $800 a year or less. And they have a lot of paperwork and they have a lot of items that they have to be able to prove and report to that they're doing. So we modified our process, and beginning in October 2019, inspection stations that receive support from us are required to log their inspections in the National Digital Check Form. We ship restraints directly to the inspection stations. So we wrote a spec for a quantity purchase of child restraints. And when we did that first shipment of those restraints, we had people calling us and saying, I think we got the wrong stuff. Well, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't think we were supposed to get this. And because we don't advocate for any one manufacturer or another, we'll say brand Acme. They said, I don't think we were supposed to get brand Acme that had built-in lockoffs in the base and built-in lockoffs on the convertible child restraint because that cost money. And we said, yep, that's what you were supposed to get, because we wrote the spec to be able to support the education. Any of the child restraints that meet the crash test requirements could be distributed. But the point of the technician is to have in a very short moment of education time to teach that parent or that caregiver how to use that restraint properly every time thereafter, and for it to be easy to do, so that way they're willing to do it. One of the other ways we use our digital check form data is we inventory the seat type. So when we have shipped seats to those locations, it helps us keep track of those, and also replenishment. So that way we can manage those seats from expiration, rotate around seat types. Stations didn't individually purchase them, so it's easy for us to move them around. So here's one just straight from the app dashboard data. September of 2018, we issued iPads, but we didn't have CPS specialists in place. We didn't have any power users out there supporting them. We saw an uptick of reporting because we put new technology in their hands. But then very quickly, we start to see that drop off again. Some of it because we all know during the winter months, January, February, March, again, we saw it over here, we're seeing some of those reductions of inspections just because people aren't necessarily as busy. But look at how much more data we have in December 2018 to December 2019. It's more, and it's more, and it's more, and it's more. So what was the difference? What was the change? And this was the difference or the change of not just putting a resource out there, but putting the training out there for it as well. Excuse me. So April, March of 2019, we see the arrival of our CPS specialists arrive into regions. So we're providing support and training with someone to be there to say, let me show you how to do this. And you see all of our reporting stats continue to go up from there. We're seeing less because of the current downturn of inspections from COVID, but it does show some of those best practices are really what we're out there to do. And those were some of your rewards from our challenges that we would share from you from Indiana, and how to make a case for technology, if that's what your hang up is with being able to report those items, or to get support from any different funding source, not just your highway safety office, but being able to show them the why and the what, not just because, but it actually shows how the digital car seat check form can help them with building their highway safety plan every year. So I'll turn it back over to Mandy for any questions.
Yes, Robert, thank you so much. This has been really excellent. And we do have a bunch of questions. So we're going to take 5 to 7 minutes to do some questions. If we don't get to your question, make sure that you ask it in the chat box and we will get back to you. We don't want to miss any questions because this was a really informative presentation. So I'm going to start back up with Nick. He asked in the beginning of your presentation, how is this data collected? Is it done when the police respond to the accident?
So all of the injury data and fatality data is collected from officer crash reports that are done at the scene of accidents or crashes, because we know there's no such thing as accidents, it's all crashes.
Thank you. Juliet would like to know, did the Highway Safety Office fund the tablets?
The Highway Safety Office did fund the tablets, both the first round and the second round of tablets. Both times that was done using 405B funding.
Thank you. Betty Ann Davidson would like to know, what is the brand of that case?
I believe the brand is Bracion or Bracon. When you post my slides in the PDF, that is an actual hyperlink to the Amazon location, so they could look at it, pull it up, see where it is. Again, we wouldn't advocate for any particular supplier or vendor, but there is a resource there.
We appreciate that. Nick wanted to know, did every installation site across Indiana receive an iPad?
Yes. So we provide one for every station. That's also a reason why we allowed them to keep their iPad mini as long as it was functioning, to provide an additional support. And in the last round, we bought 2 iPads for every station. So I still have a large stack of them over here in my office waiting for some additional distribution out to other centers.
Tracy would like to know, what is the size of a full-sized Apple tablet?
The current tablet that we're distributing is a full-size tablet, so it's a 9.7-inch tablet versus the iPad mini.
Okay, bear with me. Cece, I hope I'm saying that right. Do you have Safe Kids coalitions? Do they participate in Buck Up events? And do they use the National Digital Check Form or the Safe Kids Buckle Up inspection forms?
Most of the time they're using the Safe Kids checkup form. It is, if it's a Safe Kids event, they have to record that inspection in the database if they're using our seats with their event for being sponsored through that. So some of our permanent fitting stations are located within Safe Kid Coalition centers around the state. And our Safe Kids program is operated through our contract provider at the Automotive Safety Program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And there's some thank yous. Oh, we have one more question. Do all car seat checks happen at fitting stations, or do you have events? If you have events, do you use, or how do you use the electronic forms at events?
So we do use some of them at events. Part of that was the outreach that we did to the child care centers for CPS week to try and encourage them to have an event. And I think one of the big discoveries that makes the permanent fitting or the car seat check form so usable is the wonderful trick that we have figured out, which is you need to be on Wi-Fi to log into the app. After that point, you can switch it to airplane mode and you can continue to do your inspections, and then it will sync afterwards. So it really resolves some of those cost issues where people are looking at providing a cellular enabled tablet versus just a Wi-Fi enabled tablet. You only need a Wi-Fi enabled tablet, connect to the app, log in, put it on airplane mode, do all your inspections at your event or at your fitting station, And then when you reconnect to Wi-Fi, everything will sync up for the inspections.
That's a great tip. Thank you for sharing. We're going to do this one last question, and then if you have additional questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll make sure that we get the answer for you. And then remember that this presentation will be posted. Irene wants to know, how does the National Digital Check Form app identify areas of the state of Indiana types of crashes? Are they pulling from FARS data, or does the digital check form keep track of crashes in the state?
The digital check form does not keep track of crashes in the state. They do log in there if they are using a Project Love voucher, so a law officer voucher form that an officer can give at the scene of a crash. That's one way that they can provide for a seat to be distributed. But all of the crash data that is recorded through the automated crash reporting form that all officers use throughout Indiana.
Thank you. Well, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with us? This has been a wonderful presentation.
I will do the customary token that any state highway safety office director would say, which is the thank you for what you do. I'm hopeful that because you know what my why is and that I am doing some of the work that you guys are doing when I have the opportunity, I have hopefully a better understanding of some of those efforts that go through when it's that last car for that last event and it's already the feet are barking and it's full. I've been there when it's such a situation where you're closing the door ever so lightly on that vehicle because you want it to stay on for them to leave the inspection site, because unfortunately the vehicle itself was in that poor condition, but at least they have a good restraint with where they're at. So thank you for what you're doing. And especially during our COVID-19 pandemic, it's been the challenges to continue to do inspections and also to maintain those certifications. So thank you to all you folks.
And thank you again for being with us here today. We really appreciate the information, and I think we're all going to take a little bit from this today and implement it into our own programs.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to move on to our next speakers. Let me share my screen. And please remember that this presentation is available on cpsboard.org. We'll get it posted after the recording has finished. So I'd like to introduce our next speakers, Kelsey Lynch and Andrea Cheli from Rhode Island. Kelsey Lynch is a child passenger safety technician and occupant protection program coordinator within the Office on Highway Safety at the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Andrea Cheli, a child passenger safety technician instructor, is the program coordinator of the For Safety, Seats for Safety programs and the Safe Kids Rhode Island, housed in the Injury Prevention Center of Hasbro Children's Hospital, Rhode Island Hospital. I'll let them take it from here. Thank you. And then just let me know when you'd like to advance the slide.
Thank you so much, Mandy. This is Kelsey Lynch speaking. I have been with the Office on Highway Safety at the Rhode Island Department of Transportation now for 3 years. You mix a pandemic into that, so it's been interesting to say the least. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Our state this year, for the federal fiscal year, we made it mandatory to use the National Digital Car Seat Check Form for any law enforcement CPSTs that receive NHTSA grant funds from that 405B pot. We are law enforcement heavy in our state. So out of 68 total child passenger safety technicians, 42 are from law enforcement municipalities, including our state police. And then out of 20 law enforcement that have CPSTs within their departments that receive CPS grant funds from NHTSA, 14 departments are currently using the National Digital Check Form since 10/1/2020, the start of this fiscal year, which is pretty awesome. And the great thing about making this mandatory and tracking this is that it allows for the collection of statewide child safety seat and child safety seat misuse data, which is something that we're always struggling with within our state. We're the smallest state, but data is, bad data in, bad data out. So we're always looking for the best outlets to get this. And when the National Digital Car Seat Check Form came about, talked at length with my unit and with Andrea from her program about mandating this so that we can finally get a good picture of what is happening in Rhode Island, where misuse rates are, where we can target enforcement, and where we can target education as well. So far it's been good. And you might be wondering, why only 14 departments out of the 20? That's just for those departments that are actively conducting seat checks at the moment. COVID obviously put those numbers down from where they would normally be in our state. And a lot of departments actually have restrictions and regulations about doing seat checks. So that's made it pretty difficult. But it's pretty cool that out of the 20 that receive NHTSA grant funds for child passenger safety, 14 have been actively using their digital form since 10/1. Next slide, please. Thank you. So with any new mandate for departments, there's going to be issues. So here are a couple of things that we have encountered thus far. Actually, Rob hit on a few of them in his presentation. So our biggest one is police departments that don't have access to tablets during their seat checks or are uncomfortable using their personal cell phones at events or if they're doing a scheduled appointment. On our end in the Office on Highway Safety, we have been trying for availability for funds, but as I'm sure many highway safety offices on the call can understand, funding can sometimes be tricky and not available, but we are looking into that on our end. So that in the future, those departments that don't have tablets or iPads may be able to have access to them with the funds that we could provide. So initially, also a few departments had login and initial setup difficulties. And we worked through it actually with those from the National Safety Council and from Andrea offered her expertise from her program to help set them up as well. Being such a small state, it's kind of a blessing that we can just travel to each other and kind of work out our issues and our bugs as we move through using the form. A big issue has been transferring over paper forms to the National Digital Check form. Sometimes, whether it's an appointment or an event, ensuring that the information is all included has been tricky. Sometimes there might not have been, a certain necessary piece of information. And as you know, on the digital form, it won't let you go on until you have that. So if that's missing from the paper form, that makes it kind of difficult. And then on my end, from my office, we receive monthly data reports from each municipality that receives CPS funding, and they send in the checks that they are conducting and the seats that they have checked. So I'm making sure that those monthly data reports from municipalities are lining up with the seats that I'm seeing entered into the National Digital Check form. So making sure that they mirror each other. And if they don't, I'm also working with those departments to make sure that one, they're not having any issues getting their seats in, and two, that they know that it's a mandatory thing. So far, it's been going really smoothly. As I showed in that last slide, 14 departments are actively using it. That doesn't sound like a lot, but for Rhode Island it is. We only have 38 total municipalities, and then 20 are only the ones that receive NHTSA grant funds for child passenger safety. In order to receive those funds, they have to have CPSTs within their department. So it's been a learning curve so far, but I think we've got most of our bugs worked out. And for the next slides, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Andrea.
Thanks, Kelsey. This is Andrea Cheli here. So Kelsey and I have been working closely over the last couple of years to really grow the CPS program in Rhode Island. So we did have to switch our meetings to virtual in the last year, but we are continuing to talk about seat checks and how to move forward with certification and recertification classes. So Kelsey and I noticed that there were a lot of questions from technicians about how to sign up for the digital checklist form. So she decided that we were going to make it mandatory starting October 1st of 2020 for anyone receiving grant funds. They would have to use the digital checklist form. So a lot of folks were reaching out to me wanting to come to my office and basically have me sign them up because they weren't sure how to do it. I think a lot of the confusion was how to upload their card from Safe Kids Worldwide to the digital checklist form. So we decided to make a tutorial video. So we made a tutorial about how to sign up, and then we went a step further and made another tutorial kind of walking through the digital checklist form. Once we completed those, it kind of sparked interest in making more videos. So we've started to make some other videos around child passenger safety. So harnessing, parts of a car seat, and there'll be more to come with that. So we're really excited about that. Next slide, please. So this was a PDF that I had made to send out to some of the techs prior to the start of October 1st, 2020. So letting them know how to sign up for the digital checklist form and that it was going to be mandatory. So we tried to make it as clear as possible. You know, I took some screenshots from the actual sign up webpage there, put some arrows and circles around it. I tried to make it as easy and user-friendly as possible. And then on the back, there was information on where they could go to find our tutorial that Kelsey and I had made, which is posted on our YouTube channel. Next slide, please. So this is a screenshot of our YouTube channel. So we have a link to how to sign up for the digital checklist form. And it again walks you through how to get to Safe Kids Worldwide and pull up your wallet card, how to upload it right there to the digital checklist form login. And then there's another video that walks you through the form. So it, you know, talks about that you can look up a recalled seat if you have access to Wi-Fi. It goes into all of those things, how you can tag another technician if you're working together. And then there's some links to our other videos there. So, you know, it was, I think Rob covered this the most, and Kelsey as well. We really look forward to using the digital checklist form and being able to collect all of that streamlined data. So we're at the very beginning stages of rolling out, you know, mandating the digital checklist form, but we're hoping in the next months or year that we'll have some data that can really drive our CPS programs for the state. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This is really great. And I love that you made your own videos as tutorials. That's super helpful. I'm just checking the chat box to see if we have any quick questions that we can go over. Betty Ann Davidson would like to know, can we access those YouTube videos?
Yes, I can send the links. Let me see if I can pull it up and put it in the chat right now.
Thank you. That would be great. We would love to see that. Yep, and Amy just said they are available on cpsboard.org.
Oh, yes.
Nick would like to know, are only installation sites that receive funding using the digital check form?
Yes, I can handle that one. So unfortunately, we would love to make it mandated statewide, but the thing that we actually have complete control over, as you know, Rob can also attest to this, are those that receive NHTSA grant funds from our office. So that was how we started making it mandatory use. And our hope for the future is that maybe we can expand it statewide when people become techs through Andrea's program. Maybe we can mandate that usage, but for now, it's just those law enforcement municipalities that receive NHTSA grant funds from us.
Thank you. Lisa asked, would there be issues if techs use their own phones or iPads to download it and use the digital check form?
I know Andrea and myself can both attest to it. Yes, there's been countless issues, especially last year before COVID happened, using the form before it was mandated, working those kinks out. I myself used it from my cell phone. So I know sometimes that's tricky when you're, navigating the form and it's kind of smaller print, which is why we've been looking into trying to find funds for tablets for, our municipalities, but also some of our other community-based organizations that need it, because yes, it can be definitely tricky if you're using your personal devices.
Yes. Nick wanted to let you know that Wisconsin is in the same position, and this is so helpful. And Jim Savage, if you are hospital-based, check with your HIPAA compliance department regarding the use of personal devices for use with the check form. They might consider all of your clients as patients and might have limitations to personal device use. So just something to consider and think about. Libby, did you get any declined funds if they didn't if they didn't want to use the National Digital Check Form?
No, so far departments have been super agreeable about it. They've all been using it. And like I said in the beginning, there were those couple of issues with signing on, logging in, getting their page set up. But so far, knock on wood, the monthly reports that I've been receiving are matching up with what I'm seeing on our dashboard for the statewide use of the form. So knock on wood, I'm hoping that continues. And, making it mandatory, I think it's a popular detail in our state, only because there are so many law enforcement CPSTs. So I think they would, adhere to any guidelines that we're putting forth around it. But as of right now, nope, there hasn't been any issue.
Juliet asked, do departments only use the form, or I'm sorry, only use the iPad for the form?
You mean, I'm sorry, go one more
Is
time.
that the only purpose of the iPad is for the form, or do they use the iPads for other activities?
Right, so that was one of the things from our issues slide. We have not personally given out funds for iPads or tablets to municipalities yet. We are looking into that on our end, funding wise from NHTSA, but whether or not they have their own personal tablet or iPad or a department issued tablet or iPad is something I'm not sure. But as of right now, they have been uploading their checks as in correspondence with their monthly reports.
So I think
Did you
most
have
of the,
something to add? Oh, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think most of the departments right now are using the paper digital checklist form and then going back to the computer after the fact and logging them in.
Right.
Thank you. Robert, did you have something to add?
I did. Important question on usage and the lovely proportionate cost and making sure that we're only putting costs where costs are going to be affecting and used specifically for the NHTSA project. So we do a agreement with each permanent fitting station to receive their seats as well as their iPad and the support for that. And it has a clause in there that says this iPad may only be used for the purposes of child passenger safety education or completion of forms for the National Digital Check Form. And that's how we have that in there to provide our coverage for the NHTSA funds being used in proportionate cost.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Rob.
Tracy, I think we touched on this just a little bit. Tracy asked, do users seem to use the paper form more often and then transfer the data or go right to the digital form using an electronic device?
Yeah. So far it's been, Andrea just stated it. They've been using more or less the paper form because it's what they've been most comfortable using since they became CPSTs. Our concern is making sure that all of the information from that form gets loaded into the digital form correctly. But yes, so far, primarily it's been the paper form use and then transferring it over into it until we can, get the funds to provide the tablets to departments.
Robert, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I would just like to give a thank you to the National Safety Council for updating that form for us, because prior you had to be the person with the login that was entering that inspection. We didn't have the ability to track someone who was doing data entry to really give the credit to those technicians who were doing the inspections. The person logging it in was who was recorded for the inspection. So I just wanted to thank you and the group for updating that so we can track those people who are really doing the great work.
Thank you. We have one final question and then we need to hear from Adele. She has a very short presentation with some updates. So Rob, this question is for you. Do you have any control over the iPads or are they shipped directly to them and they set them up?
We deliver the iPads through the child passenger safety specialists and we set them up under a specific iCloud account. So that way we always have the ability to unlock them should they be returned to us in a locked status. But we don't provide any mobile iron coverage or other IT software installed on them for it to be a controlled device. Since we have that static email account that we use per region, that is what allows us to find it on Find My iPad or set it as lost if we should have one unfortunately become lost.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we are going to move on to Adele. We've got just 5 minutes left to give her presentation. So I'm going to share my screen and advance this slide. Um, Thank you again, Andrea and Kelsey. We really appreciate all the information you shared. Obviously, this is a hot topic and we're anxious to ask lots of questions. Adele Polson with Westat, a member of the National Digital Check Form program team. We've met her before in these meetings and welcome her back to share a quick update about the new features to help technicians and programs utilize their car seat check data.
All right, thank you very much, Mandy. We all have been talking about all the great data that can come out of the NDCF, so I'm going to give you a few quick updates on what we've done with the data. In January, we released updated clean data and data dashboards. So this release provides the NDCF data through September 2020. We now have over 32,000 car seat checks conducted. And we see many of the same trends from the year 1 data to the year 2 data. People who work with data, we love to see that. That really tells us that the data collection is working and that we're seeing the same kinds of things out of the same areas. Most checks were still done with infants or unborn children, and the rear-facing only seat is still the most popular seat at car seat checks. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview of the misuse we saw on the national level, looking at all of the car seat checks. Again, the rates remain largely the same from year 1 to year 2. On this slide, we can see the percent misuse in 3 categories, and also the top 3 types of misuse within those categories. So overall, we see that harnesses were misused about 38% of the time in applicable car seats. The top 3 types of harness misuse were that the harness was too loose, followed by the chest clip at the wrong height, and the harness routed through the wrong slot. When a seatbelt was used for installation, the misuse rate was nearly 60%. And when the lower anchors were used, the misuse rate was 43% overall. Next slide, please. Now, as we developed the dashboard, we considered other goals for effectively using the data. Over the past year, we've met and presented to all types of users and technicians working across the US in different settings, and we solicited their feedback and worked to meet their needs. We received many requests for help in directly and simply providing all of the data needed for reporting. We recognize that many of you need to provide counts and tallies of seat checks and also report on measures of misuse, as we've heard from our speakers today. So rather than relying on manual counts or tallying of your check information, our goal was to provide these counts via the dashboard. So we accomplished this by creating a new table tool that was also released at the beginning of January. This table tool allows all of you to select the variables that you'd like to examine, as well as simply provide filtering. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this video works, and it's going to provide you an overview of how to work with the table tool.
Hello, this is the National Digital Car Seat Check Form dashboard, and today I'm going to give you a brief demonstration of the Table Tool feature. So from the home page, to get to the Table Tool, just navigate to the top right of the dashboard and select the Table Tool page. And here you'll see a widget which allows you to create your own custom tables. So all we're seeing right now is the total number of car seat checks, but I can see the total number of car seat checks by any number of these variables here by just selecting them, dragging them either into the row position or the column position. So what this is showing right now is the number of car seat checks by each child age group. And just a note that null indicates a missing value for that particular variable. And I'm not limited to one variable. So for example, if I wanted to see this by misuse as well, I can select the any misuse variable. Let's bring that over into the column position. And now I'm seeing the total number of car seat checks by child age and misuse. I also get to see the subtotals for each of those variables, as well as the overall total. Another great feature about the table tool is the ability to filter. So say, for example, I only wanted to see this by a particular state or for a particular state. And let's say that's Colorado, for example. So I can go over to the event state variable, click the drop-down arrow, and the easiest way to do this would be to click the Select None button, and then go over to Colorado and select Colorado, and hit Apply. And what you'll see is that that variable is now bolded to indicate that filtering has been applied. And now what you'll see is the total number of car seat checks by child age and misuse for the state of Colorado. And these are just a couple examples, but I hope you found this demonstration useful so you can start creating your own custom tables using the National Digital Car Seat Check Form dashboard. Thanks for watching.
Okay, now Mandy, there's going to be a bunch of things popping up on this screen. This was my backup plan. So if you can just hit enter a few times until we get to the next slide that says download data, please. Sorry, we have had trouble with that video in the past, and I wanted to make sure I could still demo some things for you if the video failed. So I apologize for this. There we go. So getting the data into your hands is obviously one of our primary goals here. It's very critical to us. So in addition to the data visualizations provided via the dashboards, we also provide you with two different data files. There is the raw data from the NDCF that is available in real time, meaning as soon as you submit the form, it is updated in the data file, and we do not touch that data. That's exactly as the technician has entered it. We also provide you with the clean data that's cleaned by the statisticians at Westat, and that is now cleaned through September 2020 and also available on the dashboards. So starting in March, we're going to provide monthly updates to the clean data. So on March 1st, you will be able to see dashboards and data through January 2021. On April 1st, we'll have the February data available and so on. While the data will be updated monthly, we do need about 30 days to clean and prepare the data and the dashboards. Remember, all of you are invited and encouraged to add to our list of feedback using the report feedback link on the NDCF webpage. Each recommendation is captured, reviewed, approved, implemented, and tested before being deployed. Feedback from all of you in the field is what drives the continual evolution of this resource, and we very much appreciate all of the feedback we've been getting. Myself and the entire NDCF program team look forward to working with you. Please feel free to reach out directly to any of us at these email addresses below. And thank you so much for your time today and your support of this program.
Got to unmute. Adele, thank you so much. And thank you for doing that so quickly. I know you had a lot of information, but we had so many great questions. People are anxious to implement this check form. And if you have questions for Adele, I'm sure she'll stick around for a couple of minutes. If not, you can always send those to secretariat@cpsboard.org. I apologize that we are slightly over our time today, but I wanted to thank you. And our next coordinator meeting, CPS Coordinators Forum, excuse me, will be March 10th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time. And please remember, if you have ideas or if you would like to share ideas, we'd like to hear from you. Again, secretariat@cpsboard.org. So we will go ahead and end the recording, but we will stick around if you have a few questions. Again, I apologize for going over, but we're really glad you could be here today. And thank you, each of our speakers, for all of this wonderful information. We're so anxious to implement this in our own program. So thank you very much.